Future Hub, which is an exciting partnership that we've started to develop. Deryll has a knack for forecasting trends and is going to talk to you today a little bit about the next generation coming through the workplace, their perceptions on the future of work, and how you guys can support them moving forward. So I'd like to welcome Deryll.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's things? Have you had a good day so far? Yeah, good learning, walking around the room, sort of discovering. I think these guys are quite interesting in terms of, just sort of discovered that there's more than 250 jobs in the defence force. So, just sort of learning something new every day, I guess. So what we wanted to do today is, as you can sort of see on the title there, so we want to split up our chat, we keep things really informal. So if you've got any questions along the way, just sort of lift up your hand, or we can just, if it's a long-winded sort of answer, we'll just leave it till, at the end of the talk. So what we wanted to do today is just sort of split up our discussion into two halves. The first half is, I'm just going to take you through a little bit about how Generation Z, and that's the age group of 8 to 22 at the moment. So how they're kind of reinventing careers. So we spoke about, we spoke about workforces. We've all heard about how technology is sort of disrupting every sort of industry known to man. So what we wanted to do today is really sort of talk about generations and how they're coming up in the world of learning, what they're sort of learning, how they're learning, and effectively how that's going to ultimately affect their sort of choices as individuals as they grow up, and as you sort of start to connect with them from the age of 12 to 14 to 16, what their choices are going to be, how sort of adept in their learning capacity they will have sort of developed over the years. And then the second part of it is, I sort of believe it's important to go through these sessions and just sort of walk away with things that are robust things that you can implement within your daily sort of activity or your life. So so the second part, I might ask for someone from the audience if they wanted to come up and do it, or I'll just sort of show you how to set up a platform where you can actually give Gen Zers a platform to talk to. So so a little bit about us and why we exist. So we've actually, a few years ago, Future Hub is effectively an agency where we're helping everyone from businesses to individuals become future ready. And what we sort of do when we say future ready, it's just helping people migrate through the cause and effect of how technology is going to actually disrupt every industry known to man. Sort of dealing a bit with technology anxiety. There's a lot of, depending what sort of stage of your life you're at, whether you're a millennial, Gen Z like myself, or baby boomers, technology is all around you. So just looking at how to actually cope with the change, if you're still working, if you're in your mid-40s and still working, how's technology going to impact the next sort of 15 to 20 years of your life? So that's basically what Future Hub does, and we work with companies to actually sort of shift their their marketing communications, or just sort of prepare for the next generation of audience that's up and coming. So next gen customers is what we sort of focus on and what we specialise in. So our presentation, we've got a lot of words up here. You don't have to read everything. We just want to have a very candid chat and just sort of touch on a few things. This is going to be available for you to download from our site or from the ACS site. But so we're living in an age where Generation Z, they're super learners. So what we mean by that as super learners is that they are predominantly self-taught. They're the first generation who has a digital birthright, which means that they don't know a life without technology. I don't know about you guys in the room, but gone are the days of running down to the creek, playing with yabbies and doing all that. Now it's just all accessible from your tablet or from your desktop. So the super learners are really partially addicted to technology. Devices as well. They don't know life without it. So their whole world is basically what's been broadcast on the screen. Now in my house, I've got the alpha generation who are 4 and 6 years old. I've got 2 girls, and they're basically like on their they're on their devices, they're on their laptops, they're on their iPads and all that sort of stuff, pretty much constantly. So we try and spare it out to them. But effectively, super learners are individuals that are teaching themselves. So my 4-year-old daughter, she's basically learned the alphabet, learned the counting, second child syndrome, so you just leave them in the room and ignore them. So she's learned how to, do her colours, learned how to count ABCs and all that sort of stuff by watching YouTube. So, it's interesting to sort of see, how sort of adept in their learning styles they are, and they're influenced a lot by, their peers. So a lot of, that's sort of common throughout all the generations. Even if you're 14, 15 years old, you're influenced by your peers at a high school level. You're influenced by your peers on a social media sort of level, because you've got this connectivity to them that you've never had before. It's 24/7, there's no off switch. So really, that's who we're talking to. I think at the moment, if you're talking to anyone that's between 18 and 22 years old, they are it. They know everything. They're going to tell you, sort of things, not from an egotistical point of view, but they're going to tell you about things that you have no idea about. I don't know if anyone knows what unboxing means. Right? There's heaps of there's heaps of mums at home that basically they unbox new toys and they do these little skits. And there's a lady, I think she does the Disney Channel unboxing. 22 million followers. She's earning 15 million a year paid by Disney. So that's kind of who's out there, and that's these independent sort of businesses that are running. So a little bit about this. We deal a lot in the education industry, right? From the Silicon Valley guys all the way across Asia and into Australia. Basically, education, as we all know, has been hyperly disrupted. So, what I mean by that is all the traditional sandstone, sort of universities, they're all looking around thinking, wow, author enrollment numbers are dropping. There's lots of choice out there for people. What are we going to do? Even we've been talking to guys at Harvard and MIT, and they're all concerned, because they've all done exorbitant amount of income, in the last 40 to 50 years, and now they're really sort of looking around and saying, well, actually our income was decreasing year on year, so what are we going to do about it? Traditional degrees, less aspiring to people. I think with the Gen Z cohort, they prefer to get their education done through technology tools, guys at Google, Facebook, they have their annual events, which is more like mass cultural magnets. So, people stay up for 2, 3 in the morning just waiting for these tech talks to drop. And guys at Google, they're just releasing all the technology. And we're finding that Generation Z really kind of yearn for that, connectivity and that cultural magnetism, I guess, to who they're sort of learning from. They want that, they want the validation, of Google, if Google and Facebook gives them a bit of credibility, amongst their peers. So that's really what we're dealing with in terms of super learners and self-learning. There's an abundance of content out there. I hate the word content, but it's real, it's happening. I think more so rather than the singular degree or the singular qualification, now it's all about multiple degrees and multi-skills. I don't know if you've seen millennials or Gen Zs at work, but it's there's multiple devices. There's I'm on my mobile, I'm on my laptop, I'm watching YouTube while the TV is playing, and I'm connected and aware of everything going on. So that's kind of what we mean by super learners. It's just head down, but awareness is huge. So any questions so far? No? I'll keep going? Okay. So these are just some quick facts, I guess, about Generation Z. So, they watch their lessons online, they read textbooks on their iPad and tablets because of the shareability and the ease of access. 32% of them collaborate with their classmates. They hyper-connected into social media channels. There's a couple there that you may not know of, but The Secret and Whisper is probably what's common with Generation Z. And that's what sort of Secret and Whisper are about, is their sort of content is really sort of geared up with helping people with technology anxiety. So just they're very caring, they're very calming, they're very proactive with their content. 72% of them want to start their own business, and pretty much 82% of them have started their own business. This whole sort of thing about, well, I've got technology, I've got accessibility to technology, I'm going to start to create. So the Gen Z, the Gen Z demographic, apart from being super learners, they're the creative generation. They want to make things. They want to turn technology into outcomes, into play tools. It's their playground, effectively. And then we've got an amazing influence with Generation Z are their parents. So their parents basically, and this might sound weird, but all the open plan living homes, right? So they've got the lounge, they've got the dining room, they've got the kitchen, it's all in one zone. Whereas in the past, there was segmented rooms where all the kids to be seen and not heard sort of thing. So in your bedroom and make your bedroom your world. But I think over the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen a bit of a change in architecture. And now that architecture means that the family unit is pretty much open and very connected. And as a consequence, parents have got more of an integrated part into the lifestyles of Generation Z. So they're more influential in terms of what social media what social media channels they're on, what they're learning at school. The conversations are open, and then basically, as we all sort of know, Generation Z, they're hyper connected. If there's a new device, their sort of adaptability and yearning to want to learn about it is there. So they don't need to be forced to learn anything. They're just they're the super learning generation. I don't expect you guys to read any of this, but I just want to actually point out it's interesting because around the world everyone's got access to all of this. So you don't have to be in the US to have accessibility to Google Education, Coursera, General Assembly. They're all online open learning platforms, right? And the entry point towards doing a course, it's under sort of $800 in some cases. It's under $500. All the way up to you can do your MBA. You can do a free MBA online, from Harvard University. So that's really what you're competing against in terms of education. Google Education, 17 million users across the world. Facebook have backed a sort of young school called Old School, and that's basically what they've got is that they've got cameras and sort of connectivity to younger cohorts, and they sort of watch what they're learning, how they're learning, and then you can get someone over over the airways, sort of having conversations with them. So it's almost like a new version of artificial intelligence, but in the school. It's really accessible, it's awesome. I don't know if you know, but there's a place called Khan Academy. There's Khan Academy, and I guess Udemy and FutureLearn. They're all sort of powering forward in terms of a new way of learning. A new way of learning means you can do multiple courses, you can do portions of courses, and that all adds towards qualifications at the end of it. We had a couple of guys come to see us, and one guy had an MBA. It was really cool. He had this amazing education rack, and you go, wow, okay, that's awesome. But then someone else came and go, well, I've just done a year at Facebook and Google, plus I've been in Silicon Valley for 6 months working on it's just sort of working with the startup. And as a business, we were more interested in that individual than someone with a high level of qualification, because we thought, hey, this person has got a yearning to learn. They've got basically they're sort of malleable. They're not locked into what they know. They're sort of fluid, and their learning capacity would be huge. So we hired that person. So we're just sort of getting towards why sort of, I think an understanding about Generation Z is understanding what they're passionate about. And I don't know how many sort of millennials there are in the room with Gen Y, but the Gen Y really shook up the career, the working industry in terms of, well, no, it's about me, it's not about working towards that sort of big sort of goal of the company. It's about me and my needs and what I want to do. Whereas basically, so that sort of shook up, the Gen X, the baby boomers about, hey, there's a new breed of individual out there that, sort of workers that can add value on their own terms, new business. So Generation Z, they're a little bit different. They are really about, turning their passion into careers. And I think basically if, I'm not sure what the ratio is in the room about, who you're sort of advising about, their future careers, but it's really about identifying what, these kids are sort of passionate about. I'm going to call them kids, but, they're kids with enormous sort of bank accounts at the moment. So this guy, Kyle Ettinger, he's in the US, and at the age of 10, he basically, is into technology, so he's, sort of become the Michael Jordan of the drone Fight Club market. And so I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but it's in a big warehouse, and they fly their drones, and it's almost like a real version of Star Wars, which is really cool, right? And then over here we got so he was in the news. So Yuma was in the news recently. He's age 10 and he comes from a school in Melbourne. And he basically went to Apple's, I think their coding festival, and he met Tim Cook, and he was the youngest developer there. So he just basically won over in the tech world, one of the highest sort of accolades you could get. So I thought that was awesome, and he learned how to code in under 10 days, so which is phenomenal. Grace as well, I don't know if anyone in the room knows who she is, but effectively she started doing unboxing, Barbie dolls, just doing these little skits and these little stories, and developed a YouTube channel, and she's got 10 million followers, and Mattel and the guys at Shopkins have now placed her as an ambassador. So her parents have quit their jobs to actually film this,
Shooting on TV about 2 months ago.
I think.
Or an affair or something like that.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I think so. I remember that. So, yeah. So, I mean, you can sort of see, you can sort of see a bit of a, sort of tone of interest of learning, and how these guys are actually using technology to, give themselves a catalyst into a future. Now, all these guys can start off doing what they're doing to say, hey, I'm going to make a career out of this. It's passion equals future careers, and because they've got technology readily available, they make it go for it. So interesting that this passion equals your future career. So anyone you're talking to a Gen Z, they're hyper learners. They know stuff you have no idea about, and basically, I think what you can do is really sort of work with them to understand what their passions are in life, and it's going to be a bit of a nurturing process. Now, I'm not going to stand here saying I'm a career advisor. I know how to advise people, but I know what's going to disrupt your futures, and I know what's going to disrupt industries. So it's really about we've got a responsibility, I guess, to make sure that the Gen Z sort of audience from 8 to 22, there's a bit of nurture and care into what their future decision, sort of decisions will be and should be. And I think as adults in the room basically having a little bit more, a little bit more maturity and a bit more real life sort of skills in terms of like, it's hard out there, right? So, those who are not doing this are going to be like, that gap between like, these sort of individuals on screen versus, those who aren't doing it. There's going to be a massive gap between, sort of income potential and like what their career pathways are. So this leads us onto the second part of, I'll skip this. I don't know why we put a question mark in there, but what we wanted to do is, sort of find out from anyone that, sort of feels, that they want to have a, like a quick discussion. But what we want to find out is, like, how you're sort of advising, like, the 8 to 22-year-olds, and then what is going to be like a good way to actually approach it for the future. It's something that you integrate a bit of data into like your outcomes, like, you sort of think about what kind of platforms are out there that you can give them a springboard to make all these decisions for the future.